all from the GW Resiliency and Well-being Center. I am Leigh Frame, the Associate Director and co-founder of the R&W Center with Dr. Lorenzo Nuris, who is the GW Chief Wellness Officer. He's also joining us here today. Hello, Lorenzo.
Hello, Leigh. Glad to be here with everybody.
Yes, thank you. And we actually have quite a bit of the team here today. We also have Victoria Kashikov. I'm going to say your name wrong because I'm not looking at it, and I'm going to get better at it. Karashava. Close. Okay. She's our new Director of Behavioral Health Services, and then Janet Rodriguez, our Administrative Director. So a little bit about the center. The R&W Center supports individual, departmental, and institutional level purpose. Purpose is the foundation of whole person health. To support purpose and meaningful contribution, the R&W Center provides whole person care and education, including empowering our employees and trainees, supporting all academic and clinical units and departments, comprehensive advising and resource support. You can find out more about the center at our website, rwc.smhs.gwu.edu. Today, we're offering this workshop on nourishing resilience with mindful movement, which will be led by Yael Flesberg. Yael is a GW grad with a BA in political science from 1989. And since 1996, she has been a solopreneur. As a yoga therapist and coach, Yael helps people recover resilience in the midst of transition and loss, and in the aftermath of trauma. Prior to becoming a yoga and mindfulness educator, Yael spent 2 decades working with hundreds of grassroots, philanthropic, and creative communities through capacity building, leadership development, and strategic planning. Because of her background, she's especially curious about how entrepreneurs, complex and creative self-starters who often possess cognitive and behavioral idiosyncrasies, like ourselves, are prone to stress-related conditions and burnout, as well as how they might create a set of tools to cultivate a deeper sense of venture-proof well-being. Now let's get to the good part. Yael, I'm going to give it to you.
Thank you so much, Leigh. I have to laugh at throwing in the fact that I'm a GW grad. I'm so happy to be here today with everybody. And just so that you know a little bit of what to expect whenever we're talking about whenever we're talking about resilience and burnout, I think it's important for us to do just a little bit of education around our nervous system. So just so that we can have a cognitive understanding of an approach, some of the basic concepts. So I'm going to be talking just a little bit, and I have some slides which will then be shared with folks afterwards. And then we're going to get into the mindful movement part. I'm going to well, I'll just jump ahead. I think movement is one of the ways that we sort of go through and clear the stress cycle. And the idea is that stress is not bad for us. So I want to start off by saying that entrepreneurs are the so what of why mindful movement and why working on nourishing resilience is so important for entrepreneurs. Is that entrepreneurs, in my opinion, are really at the heart of social and economic growth and transformation. And especially as we're coming out of COVID, there's no one that's more important in my mind than entrepreneurs who keep moving things forward. And yet we don't really have a culture of taking good enough care of the people who provide so much for our society. There's also a lot of research on entrepreneurs, something like 72% self-report mental challenges that are lifetime. There is a huge amount of burnout, and stress-related illnesses are often considered to be the price of admission for new venture creation. I disagree with some of the stuff, and I think there's some ways that we can work on that. So let's look at what our nervous system is. And if you just give me a minute, can I share? Oh yeah, I can share my screen. Thank you for that. Okay. All right, my friends. So, of course, it always takes me a minute to get things running. So one of my favorite definitions of what is resilience comes from something I read this morning by Rachel Yehuda, who's this famous epigeneticist, and she works on resilience and trauma. She did famous studies of children of Holocaust survivors, but she quotes the Timex ad that says, takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And the idea is that resilience in a way is like sobriety. You actually have to work on it actively and in your awareness. And it's like you want to keep moving forward with resilience. There's many different aspects of resilience. People will say it's sort of like a rubber band and you can bounce back. I think it's a little bit more akin to post-traumatic growth. We don't always bounce back exactly where we've been, but the idea is that we can push through adversity and that it's pretty complex. So we often, when we talk about resilience, we are often talking about individual like, am I resilient enough? What am I going to do to reduce my stress load and to be more resilient? But especially for those of us with a deep interest and engagement in social justice, we really have to look at not just the individual, but also a community. So, just a small example is in the United States, parental leave is pretty abysmal. It's 6 weeks, right? It's pretty small. But if you go to a country like Canada, you can get up to a year off. So the resilience of individual families is going to be different, right? In both of those contexts. And what makes someone more or less resilient? It could include genetics or epigenetics, which is really like ancestral line. These cultural ideas, socioeconomics, right? It's easier to be more resilient if you are better resourced, for example. Okay, so when we're talking about what resilience is, a healthy nervous system, a regulated nervous system is sort of the key. And just this is a really simple way to understand the nervous system. We're not meant to be zenned out all the time. Another word for that would be flatlined. So, things happen, we get aroused, but then hopefully, you might have a stressful day, but you should be able to just brush it off and then chill out. You might be super chill, and then something happens, a phone call with a colleague, and you got to get up and start thinking. That's how we should be. It's never going to be quite as smooth as this chart says, but it should be something that you're able to do with ease, right? Switch between the two. However, with chronic stress and also with trauma, our nervous systems get dysregulated. And what you'll see here is that, they often become much more jagged. These dash lines are considered to be like where we should stay in. Sometimes that's called the window of tolerance or the window of resilience. And what winds up happening is we often get stuck on either high or on or low or off. And sometimes what also, if you think about it, our culture is one that is always saying, go, do, work. And so we really tend to penalize people who want to go back into the natural cycles and chill out. And we tend to reward people who are always producing, always doing. The danger of that is that we can be stuck on high or in hyperarousal with all the hyper conditions that we might see in the body's nervous system, digestive system, etc. And then we can burn and crash, where your body is not able to return to the natural system, and we can go into that exhaustion. And that is really a good way of understanding burnout. So here you could see the fight and flight response or the sympathetic nervous response. the healthy response, and freeze, which is also a typical response of the nervous system, but freeze over time can turn into burnout. So just a way of thinking about our nervous systems, we're really meant to be kind of in the middle all the time. So what is burnout? And I thought it was really important when we're talking about nourishing resilience to know its sort of evil twin sister. So burnout, according to the book by the Nagoski sisters, which is a fabulous book, if anyone's interested, they're using the World Health Organization definition, emotional exhaustion. I would add actually physical or physiological exhaustion to that, like when you can't get out of bed. That could be emotional, but that could also have different hormonal, for example, or neurotransmitter markers. Depersonalization, which is when you don't feel like yourself, you feel like you're going through the movements, you feel like you're watching yourself on film, and a decreased sense of accomplishment. And we know as entrepreneurs, no matter what we do, if we're not accomplishing at least what we did last week, it's not good enough. So these things can get really, really muddled for us as entrepreneurs. Just sort of a basic, stress, there's a difference between the external stressor, which is whatever happens in the outside, a deadline, all of a sudden you need to raise venture funds, right? The processing system, which is the brain and the nervous system, and then how we respond to it, our thoughts, our actions, and our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And the most important thing to know here is that regardless of what the stressor is, it's our processing system that determines what the response will be. So it's your nervous system regulation or dysregulation. It's the way that your brain processes information. This is a little simplistic, but the idea is that it's not one and done. For you to nourish resilience, you can't take just one yoga class, or a lot of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley will do psychedelics as a way of getting better focus, for example, and getting better nervous system regulation. Whatever you use is up to you, but you can't just do it one time. There's like capacity building or training of the nervous system that has to be used. Okay, so this slide comes from a book that is a little bit more on the woo-woo side of entrepreneurship. It's Jessica Carson's Wired This Way. She's a neuroscientist and an entrepreneur. She previously worked with the American Psychological Association and also the NIH. And, her why entrepreneurs have higher than average stress and burnout rates has to do with some genetics. So who's attracted to doing, not 9-to-5 work are really creative types. And in creative types, we know that there's maybe different conditions than in the general population. Some people would categorize this as mental illness. I'll just remind you that, like, for example, ADHD, there's higher levels of ADHD in entrepreneurs, but this also means that there might be a really, really wonderful ability to focus and concentrate. There might be more OCD. This could be an incredible ability to pay attention to detail. So, we don't need to pathologize everything. The nature of entrepreneurial work, it's really rush. It can be a high level of intensity, and that intensity of passion, of commitment, trying to raise literally millions of dollars, that intensity can also lead to this nervous system dysregulation more than people who get to leave their offices at 5 or 6. And then there's the whole kind of culture of the ecosystem, which is really, what a lot of people call hustle culture, cutthroat hustle, get up and go. Jessica in her book talks about this as being a very masculine versus feminine. So not looking at qualities, not genders. and that sometimes some of these qualities of go, go, go is really a form of toxic masculinity. So her book is wonderful if you also want to, again, it's wired this way, and she does a lot of assessments so that you could figure out what the best way for you to move forward is. So stress is a very interesting thing. You too little and you could also have problems, and there's sort of this magic at the top of the mountain, right? Like we want to have enough stress that we get up and go, but if we have too much, we'll just burn out and be exhausted, and it's really, really hard for us to pull ourselves out of it. So there's this metaphor of emotions and tunnels, and how do we complete stress cycles? And rather than emotions, people will say are just energy in motion, and that the best way to complete a stress cycle is to actually go through it. That there might be a very long tunnel. You can't go around the tunnel. You'll be in the middle of the mountain. You've got to actually go through it. And and this is something that's very similar in yoga, where we talk about non-avoidance and really knowing what you feel. For example, even just labeling and tracking, right now I feel anxious, actually change, or I feel angry, actually changes where in the brain that anxiety and that anger is. It's not so important where it is, but just know that going through until you get to the other side will actually help you discharge the levels of stress before they build up too much and then you crash and burn, which is exactly what we don't want you to do. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. What we're going to do, one of the best ways of actually discharging stress is in the body. So any kind of exercise that you enjoy can do it. What we're going to do today is yoga-inspired movement. And I think what we're going to start with is actually some standing, just to do some shaking and just a little bit of movement. And then I'm just going to encourage you, if you can take off your shoes, if you have a place on the ground, it could be carpet. Many of you are watching from home. A firm mattress will also do. I've got a yoga mat back behind me because we'll be doing that. Okay, so I'm just going to encourage you, rolling my chair out of the way, and I see a couple of people already standing up, which is awesome. So I'm just going to encourage you just to get up, and you could just start to shake a little bit. Dr. James Gordon, who's at Georgetown, also local, talks a lot about shaking as helping to discharge stress from the nervous system. And you can see I'm shaking, and I'm just going to narrate what I'm doing, but know that it's your choice what you want to do. I'm just also swinging from side to side here. If this makes you dizzy, keep looking ahead of you. You can be really vigorously shaking or even jumping up and down. You could choose maybe just to shake one leg. Sometimes just doing this for a couple of minutes, turning off your computer or turning off the screen more likely is really helpful. Good. So just kind of notice, you could close your eyes. You can also look around the room where you are, so you don't have to look at me. And, when I turn around, I'm able to notice different colors. It was just my birthday, so I see birthday cards and I kind of get a little warm and fuzzy. And I could see qualities of light and shadow. I see paintings people have made me. And so look around your own space, just maybe noticing 5 things that you see. Good. And then maybe bring your shaking to a close. If it's comfortable for you, you can close your eyes. If not, just don't look on screen. Look off. Arms can be loose at your side, or feel free to take one hand on your lower belly and the other hand on top of that hand. And just really note, you might have been going to all kinds of sessions earlier today and certainly earlier this week. Notice how you're feeling. And there might be language. You might feel inspired. You might feel overwhelmed. You might notice that you're tired or that there's tingly sensations just from standing up. And I'll invite you here just to take a few deep breaths. So thinking about that healthy nervous system, maybe we can make our breaths like those waves of the nervous system, like a gentle day at the ocean, bringing in a sweet rhythmic pattern. And there might even be a sound to that breath. Good. On some days, this might be all you have time for, just a little shaking and checking in. Today, we're so lucky that we get to do a longer practice with one another. And I'm just going to suggest we continue. Come into some sort of forward fold. So your forward fold might be just halfway. I'm going to bend my legs a lot to get started. You might also be using like a couch or something just to relax your hands. Your hands can be on the floor. And we could just move a little bit here. Really gentle movements. So mindful movement just really means you're not moving by default. You're actually paying attention. And it's easier for us to pay attention when we're a little bit slower and a little bit more rhythmic. Good. Let's just take one more big inhale here. Exhale completely. Feel all the breath leaving your lungs. Okay. And then we're just going to find our way to a comfortable seat on the ground. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to, you can always, like if you've got a blanket or something, you could sit down on that blanket just to give yourself a little bit more space. And again, we're just going to start with a gentle rhythm of movement. My hands are on my knees. I could be doing this in a chair, by the way. And I'm just going to do some nice slow circles. So some people say slow is the new strong. And in a way, what we're trying to do is allow ourselves, if only for this time that we have together, to go into a deeper sense of time. Good. Let's go around in the other direction. The Greeks used to talk about chronos versus kairos. Well, chronos, like chronology, is just our regular clock time. It is X o'clock. I have this many minutes. I need to do X by Z time. Kairos is this little more mysterious time. The next time you circle to the right, let's hang out right there. Taking your right hand down, let's reach our left arm up and over. And we could even, this is how old I am, draw as though on a clock face. With that left arm, just draw circles. So there's something about stepping out of clock time, slowing down, that can also really enhance our creativity. Good. And then let's go in the opposite direction. So every day, kind of making time where you're not by a screen can be incredibly helpful, and where you step out of the ordinary. Good. Now reach, reach, reach as much as you can to the right. And then let's come all the way up and over to the other side. Good. As you're ready, beginning to draw those sweet, slow circles here. And if you can, you're also paying a little bit of attention to the breath. Breathing nice and smooth and deep. Good. And then we'll come around to the other side. Good. Working in this slow way to also affect the tissues that need slowness. Good. As you're ready, let's come all the way up. Bring both arms up. Let's go ahead and shrug the shoulders up, then back, then down, so that your fingers are still magically alive and reaching skyward, but the shoulders are released from the ears. And then let's take a simple twist. Left hand somewhere to the right knee. Right hand can be either back behind you on the floor or up. See if you can keep your chin parallel to the floor, or you could also just gently move it a little bit from side to side here. Let's do one more big inhale. And on the exhale, we'll just come right back through center. Imagine that you're gathering up all the energy on the next inhale. Shoulders stay low. Exhale over to the other side. So right hand by left knee, left hand somewhere back behind you. Spine is more or less noble and upright. Just giving lots of space for the spinal cord, all the nerves of our central nervous system to relax and engage at the same time. Breath is really just helping you feel a little bit more present right here. And in fact, you just might even right here, again, just notice what is in the room. Awesome. As you're ready, let's come right back through center. And then we'll bring the hands down by the hips. And let's take our legs into a little bit more of a butterfly position here. You could draw your heels in to just whatever extent feels comfortable. Your knees might be super high. That doesn't really matter. Just for a moment, dig your thumbs into your own ankles, especially that space right behind the ankles, between the ankles and the Achilles tendon at the back body. There's usually a bunch of tender points there. Just to kind of activate. You could do the same thing just right above the sole of your feet. So on the instep of your foot, just above the plantar fasciitis, that fascia that's a little spongy on the bottom of your foot. And then you could also just dig your thumbs in a little bit. So sometimes our touch can also really help ground us and help re-equilibrate the nervous system. Massage is great. I'm glad that we can go get it again now. Okay. And then let's do a little bit of work for our hips and our low back. We're going to just lean back a little bit. Take your feet as wide as your mat. You don't have to change. I'm just kind of trying to give you a different angle. And we're just going to rock the knees from one side to the other. So sometimes this is called windshield wiper. We're just rocking from one side to the other. You can keep doing this with your hands back behind you, or feel free to release through one hand. You can also bow down. So there's so many options. The key to discharging stress from the body is also to begin to listen to your body, to listen to your mind, and to begin to notice what would be most beneficial for you. Maybe it's no hands today and you want to like move around the space a little bit more. Okay, so the next time both of your feet come towards the left, so your right shin is in front, just sort of shift your legs. Your right shin is going to be in front and your left is going to be folded over. If there's any pain in the knee, a pillow or a blanket underneath that left knee can really help. I'm going to take my right fingertips out to the side and slide my left hand about to the midway point of the thigh. This is really good for the low back, for sitting, for the sacroiliac joint, which is the joint right at the low back and by the flaring or butterfly hip bones. We're not really meant to sit as much as we do. And all we're going to do is we're going to rock this entire left thigh towards the upper right-hand corner of the room and then back down. So I'm going to do this nice and slow. When I rock up on the diagonal, maybe my left sit bone raises off the ground. When I rock down, it might hover or it might eventually touch down. And I'm just going to rock forward and back, forward and back. And I can go with my breath here as well. Some of us will feel this a lot and some of us will barely feel it. Doesn't really matter. You're still getting benefit. Also very good for those of us who have ever taken a fall on our backs, which is kind of what all entrepreneurs do, right? Fall 3 times, get up 4. Good. And then from here, we're going to come up one more time and we're going to take a little bit of a maybe a deeper twist. So you can be high here. If it feels better, you could also walk your hands a little further away or even down. I'm going to stay high. And I'm going to rock a little bit from side to side. And I'm really noticing as I do that what's happening in the low back and in the hips, areas of tightness. I might even feel some bony sensations. We could say edge and depth, which are also 2 places that entrepreneurs really get to know in the ecosystem. Good. Let's come a little bit out of it. Now I'm going to flatten out through my right hand so I can extend this left leg out right away. I'm just going to take a side bend to the left. I could play with where my chest is, either pointing down a little bit more towards the ground or away. My hands can also find the back of my head. So you do you. Let's just take one more breath here. And then let's take this right arm all the way up and over. I'm going to place it down. And you can either just stay here and do the opposite side stretch. I'm going to pop up onto this right knee and just kind of have a little fun here. I could stay right here. I could lift this left leg up. I could also find a little bit of freestyle movement. Again, just kind of searching for all the places in my body that feel numb, that feel tight, that feel like they're still holding on. And I'm just trying to send my breath there, discharge what's there, and find a new sense of life. As you're ready, I'm going to invite you just to nice and easily come to the other side. So now my left shin is in front. The right leg is folded back behind me. Again, use the blanket underneath the knee if that serves you. Left fingertips out to the side, and we'll just rock and roll a little bit here. Just forward and back, or diagonal and back. All right, so some of us might be feeling our range of motion, what stops us. And it's just like going through that tunnel. We want to be really safe, not take too many risks, which is maybe our tendency as entrepreneurs, but be really mindful. So as you approach the edge, you could always just stop and hover and give it a couple of extra breaths before you come back. Good. Let's just do 2 more of these. And then we could take that right hand over to the left, find the depth that would feel good for you or the height, and just be in this twist for a few breaths. Good. And then we'll take it into that side bend by extending right leg out. Draw your left arm up and over, but feel free to also just take it on the head or take it down. What the arm is doing is the least important piece of the puzzle. And just enjoy finding whatever you discover here. Make sure that you're still breathing nice and smooth. And even here, you could always check in. What am I noticing about how I'm feeling? What am I noticing about how I'm perceiving the world around me? That gives you a great indication of what's happening with the nervous system. Okay, and then we're going to have a minute of sort of freestyle. So again, you could just keep it low here and have some fun on the ground. I'm going to pop up and have some fun hovering over the ground, just moving around a little bit, testing my balance, almost lunching it, and then noticing my reaction, which was joy. So that also gives me a little indication of what's happening with my nervous system today. It takes a long time to rebalance it. For me, I've been doing this practice for about 30 years, and I still have a long way to go. All right, my friends, let's come down. And let's come all the way down. Let's come all the way down onto our backs. And while you're here, you could be hugging in through your knees. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you guys could still see me okay. Could be hugging in a little bit through the knees, not so aggressively. And I'm just gonna rock a little bit forward and back, or rather from side to side. When I do this, I really get a chance to give my low back a massage. Good. And then let's do some stuff for our hip, shall we? So I'm going to bend this right leg maybe I'll just show you from a different angle. I still have my hand on my left shin. I'm bending this right leg, and I'm going to do what's called a half happy baby. So I'm going to draw that right knee down towards the ground to the outside of the rib cage. I could grab onto my ankle or to my foot to do that. And then I have a choice. I could either keep, so you might feel this in the inner thigh or the groin. I could either keep the left leg as it is, or I could release the foot to the ground. Or if I'm a little bit more Gumby-like, I could stretch it out on the ground. Doesn't really matter. Same thing for the opposite arm. I could, for me today, it feels really, really nice to stretch it long, but you might have it at your side. And as I'm doing this in whatever position I am, I could also gently rock my head from side to side. So I'm really enjoying this time on the ground and noticing the contours of my body on the ground, the places where my body meets the mat and the wood floor, and the places where it hovers above it. The weight of me. Good. And then let's just release this. So wherever you were, if the opposite leg was in the air, I'm going to invite you to straighten it out. We're going to hold on to the right knee just with the left hand. I'll extend my right arm out to the side, and I'm going to take some sort of twist. Another option is just to hook the right toes behind the left knee. Sometimes it's really nice to use the right fingertips to like walk away from you, to pull your back body a little closer to the ground. And just take a few breaths here. Breathing all the way down to the belly. Good. Just for fun, as we come out of this, let's roll all the way onto our bellies. Roll all the way onto your belly. Your forehead can be on the ground. We could rock the hips a little bit from side to side. And then you could take your hands alongside, maybe even wider than your mat. And we could just press one arm straight and then the other, so that we're just finding a gentle back bend. You can also come up a little bit straight. The opposite movement of what I like to call schlumpasana, which is when we're schlumping at our desks for too long working on spreadsheets. Any kind of back bend. You can also just do a back bend with your forearms on the ground as I'm showing right now. So anything that feels good in stillness or movement. You could also just do one arm at a time. Good. And then we're just gonna roll on over to our backs to get to the other side. Hugging the knees in, maybe rock and rolling a little bit. And then we're gonna reach for our left ankle or foot, come into a half happy baby here. You choose what you wanna do with that right leg and that right arm. Most important thing is your breath. It is really true that the breath is the closest, the closest we have to the nervous system. So if your mom ever told you to take, 5 to 10 deep breaths when you were angry, she was right. That actually will change the rhythms in the nervous system. And so moving with your breath will also be really helpful. Okay, let's just do one more full inhale. On the exhale, bring that knee back through center. You could hug it in, everybody extending out through that right leg, no matter where it was before, and coming into a single-legged twist, which is what we did on the other side. Although, of course, if it would feel better for you to do both legs, do that. Just finding a sweet twist here. Good. And then coming right back through center, maybe a little bit more movement here. And I'm just going to suggest you find a really comfortable final position just to lie down in, and we'll just do a little bit of breathing together. It could be something as simple as lying here with the knees toward one another and the feet a little bit wide apart. You might have more open hips, and maybe you want to return to that butterfly that we did. It might also feel really good to take your legs up against a couch or a chair. I think what I'm going to do today is I have a weird shape blocked, and I'm just going to put that right behind the sternum, right by the bra line. And I am also going to use a pillow here. And so this is also a very gentle heart opener that would feel really good for me today. So find what would feel good for you. Legs can be in any position at all. And again, if it's comfortable for you, just close the eyes here. It might also feel good to have one or both hands on the body, maybe on the heart and on the belly. And really getting into that breath, that smooth, balanced rhythm. And we're going to manage it just a little bit more, work with it just a little bit more to be even more relaxed. So take a nice big inhale here. Exhale all the way down to the bottom of your lungs, and then hold after your exhale. Good. As you're ready, take in another big inhale. Let it go. And pause. And then as you're ready, continue on your own. We're just going to do that rhythm of inhaling, exhaling, and pausing. Good. And then coming back to your natural breath, kind of scan the body, noticing everything about the inner landscape. Any sensations? In the physical body. An awareness of emotions, maybe even mood, sort of the feeling tone for this afternoon. And you might also notice the quality or velocity of thinking. Might have shifted from the top of the hour. Good. Now think of a community or an idea that you feel like you are an active part of, something that you belong to. And then one intention you have for yourself, it might be a commitment around your nervous system, around making a commitment to keep moving things forward. Takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Nice. As you're ready, let's all bring some more movement and breath into these bodies. You could wiggle fingers and toes. Feel free to give yourself a really nice stretch. You could give yourself a big hug. If you've been lying down, take your time, come on up. And just so I don't send you back out into the world sleepy, let's just do a little tapping all along the scalp. And the forehead. You could do right around the outside of the eyes, the cheeks. Maybe come down right below the collarbones. Yeah, and then you could just sort of slap the arms, slap the belly, slap the legs. Well, thank you so much. I hope this gave you a good taste of mindful movement. I hope you're all feeling 2% better. And I think Leigh was going to say something, but I don't. Victoria, are you going to do it? Because I don't think she's here now.
I can do it since it looks like she needed to step away. Well, first of all, thank you so much for very relaxing, very engaging time. And I would love to encourage everybody who were with us today to make it a part of your routine, whatever that is, as simple as a few minutes that I think you showed us in the beginning, to as more elaborate if you have more time as a part of your self-care and as a part of your resilience building. And of course, use us, Center of Resiliency and Well-being, as your resource. If you would like more information, if you would like more support in whatever you are doing in your life, in your career. So thanks a lot, everybody who were present here. And thank you for our wonderful guest.